Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Zapier Central plus Single Store equals Full RAG Agents. My name is Matt Brown, and I will be your host and moderator today. One of my main jobs at Single Store is to organize weekly AI webinars, 2 to 3 per week, demonstrating AI and data use cases, new tools, and new technologies. I post about these upcoming webinars every week, so if these topics are interesting to you, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd also love to hear your feedback or ideas on topics for future sessions. Speaking of future sessions, we have some awesome webinars coming up over the next few days. On June 10th, we have Beginner's Guide to RAG Agents with Professor Tom Ye of Colorado Boulder CS department. We've also got on June 11th, How to Do Knowledge Graph RAG with Single Store. On June 17th, we've got Building Secure AI Healthcare Apps with AWS Private Cloud. I don't have a landing page for that one yet, but stay tuned for that one. And then we also have our new auto register feature. This was a request from lots of folks who said, I love all of these. I just want to auto RSVP, get them on my calendar automatically without having to click through every single one. If that's interesting to you, you can do that. Just click any of the landing pages that you see, and as you sign up for a given webinar, there will be an auto RSVP checkbox, which will add the Zooms automatically to your calendar. You'll automatically get those GitHubs, get those video recordings, even if you can't attend a given week, and you can unsubscribe at any time. Also, if you click to the next slide, you will see that our product and engineering teams have been very busy at work. Recently, there was a survey of our Fortune 1000 customers who said that over 90% of their new AI initiatives ended up being too hard, too slow, or too costly based on all of that enterprise data being stuck in Iceberg or structured in a way so that the vectors hype didn't really work. So join us on June 26th. Our engineering team is launching some new product features that will enable companies to build enterprise grade Gen AI apps on Iceberg data. When I say Iceberg data, think of like Snowflake, Databricks, Azure Data Lake, and stuff like that. But with this feature, you'll be able to get millisecond response times with your applications. This is very timely release. As you maybe heard this week in the news, Databricks and Snowflake had a bidding war to acquire Tabular, a Apache Iceberg startup, which is yet another indication that the industry is moving towards this Iceberg data lakehouse format. And it is critically important to unthaw this data and keep it hot for your AI and for your applications. Register now. There's a link at the bottom. It's the Unfreeze Iceberg Data.
Link with you momentarily in the chat as well. So if you click on that, let me just show you. It'll take you to this page here. So this will give you the opportunity to sign up if you haven't already done so. Very easy. Either use Google or Microsoft, or the old-fashioned way if you want to put your first name, last name in. And literally within, I think, about a minute or so, you should get confirmation of that. And so a couple of things. Free tier available, free forever. Great for building prototypes, side projects, and so on. And then if you need a bit more in terms of resources, there is this kind of standard tier as well, which is I think it used to be $600 worth of credits. Believe it's still the same amount. So that's a great way to get started. And what this will do then is once you've signed up, you'll get something like this, okay? So we've often shown this portal, and this is where you provision resources and create workspaces and so on. And there's a Jupyter Notebook environment as well. Not going to focus on that today, okay? That's for another time. But let's just head back to the presentation here, okay? So just say a little bit about Zapier Central then. So no-code tool to boost productivity and automation. We all look for that. I've been in the business a long time, and it's always been having to write code. These days, I do use a little bit of help from ChatGPT from time to time, although it tends to make lots of mistakes, I have to say. I tend to use the free tier, so I don't pay for the privilege of using some of its advanced capabilities. But very, very important today, I think, especially given the depth and the strength of the AI movement. as it's been for roughly 2 years now, where we've seen, considerable interest in this space. And so the ability also to create, train, and interact with AI bots, perform tasks, drafting emails, researching leads, analyzing data, and much more. So kind of kind of tasks that might be considered a little bit mundane in terms of our time, have the technology automate these processes for us, do useful work for us instead. And then an incredible 6,000 plus application integrations, Slack, email, Stripe, Discord, Salesforce. I mean, you name it, it seems to be on there. And Andy's here, so he'll be able to answer more questions and more details about the integrations a little bit later on. And connected data sources, including single store. Okay, so this is the kind of big thing that Ayush has been working on for a couple of weeks now. So I think we originally intended to do this webinar a little bit earlier, but we needed a bit more time to progress this and to make it kind of official, if you like. And so he's done a lot of the hard work on that for us. And Matt's got a video, but I'm going to play this for you instead. Okay, it's very short, so let's just do that. Okay, hopefully this will run fine. And again, Matt, Ayush, Andy, let me know if you can't hear it and you can't see it. So let's try this.
In this video, we're going to dive into a brand new product from Zapier called Zapier Central. This powerful AI workspace is designed to take your productivity and automation game to the next level across Zapier's massive ecosystem of over 6,000 apps. So what is Zapier Central? Zapier Central is a no-code tool that allows you to create, train, and interact with intelligent AI bots. Think of these bots as like mini teammates that can do a whole bunch of tasks for you, like drafting customer emails, researching new leads, analyzing data, and so much more. Using Central is incredibly easy. You do not need any coding experience. You can define what you want AI to do, connect all the apps like you do with Zapier, and the AI will understand and execute those commands when you need it. For example, you can ask your bot to become your executive assistant, analyzing your emails and surfacing the most important ones that require a response. But just saying, hey bot, tell me what emails do I need to respond today? AI will automatically analyze all your emails and surface the ones that are important to respond to. Or let's say you connect your sales data to Central, you can then instruct the bot to become your data analyst, allowing you to ask complex questions like, hey bot, how many percentage of people who have sales background have seen the demo? The AI assistant will understand the query, crunch the numbers, and get back to you with the valuable insights. Zapier Central is a major step forward in the world of no-code AI and workflow automation. By allowing users to directly interact with and teach AI bots, it opens up new realms of productivity and efficiency. Literally, you're limited by your imagination. No longer you need to handle repetitive, tedious tasks manually. Simply define the behavior you want and let your AI bot take care of the rest. So you have more time to focus on things that matter more. So if you're a Zapier user or you know someone who's a productivity nerd, Zapier Central is definitely something you want to keep your eyes on. We're going to be doing some live demos and tutorials on how to build these bots in the upcoming videos. So keep an eye out and let us know what your thoughts are on Zapier Central. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content on productivity, automation, tools, and all things tech.
Great. Well, that I think captures it succinctly and in a nutshell. Essentially, sounds awesome. A real time saver.
In this video, we're going to dive into.
Oh, there we go. Let's move on. Say a little bit about RAG. Okay, so for those of you who are regulars, you've seen this diagram, this chart before. So essentially, when we are dealing with things like vectors and embeddings, what we'd like to do is to be able to store that, take some data, might be sort of documents, might be email messages, for example, or PDF. We break that down. If you're using things like unstructured, for example, you can work with PowerPoint slides even. And then we're able to convert those to embeddings, store those in a database system, what we could term here as sort of company data, if you like. And then we build these Gen AI apps to be able to answer these end users sort of queries. So we perform the search, okay, interrogating those vectors using things like dot product, Euclidean distance, and so on, return the top results. That top result or results we then feed into the LLM to give it some context and be able to work with that in sort of that way. And this is really where the power, if you like, of the LLM comes in. So sometimes and often actually with company data, it's not going to know very sort of specifics about your business or about your data. And so you're trying to teach it something that it doesn't know, but you're giving it enough information to be able to draw some conclusions from that. And then typically the AI stack architecture in terms of where single store is, and if you've seen, again, any of the previous webinars, you know that we tend to focus a lot on the kind of contextual sort of layer, simply because single store is able to handle that very well. And we can store things in JSON, for example. Okay, so you can see this down the bottom here. We can take, as I mentioned, PDF, images, even PowerPoint slides. If you remember, not so long ago, I did something on Clip, for example, showing how we could take videos and we could break videos down into sort of frames of 1 second duration, for example, create embeddings from those, and then be able to search both the content of the video and ask it questions using text as well. Okay, so there's sort of two ways that we could approach that. And this is the kind of multimodal aspect of that. But one layer up from that, so let me just clear my arrows there. You can see we've got a whole bunch of AI sort of API sort of endpoints, pardon me, and things like connectors, for example. Okay, agents, which we are hearing a lot of today, and Ayush will do a little bit on that. And then the specific LLMs that we have. And again, you can see there's a wide choice that you can use today, both commercial and open source. And I think my one observation there is that the open source models seem to be coming as good and sometimes better than what's commercially available. And I think it's only going to get better in time. Commercially, when I started using the first LLM, which was OpenAI last year, when Matt and I did our very first webinar covering, LLMs and the use of these for a specific problem, which happened to be fraud detection, the cost was quite high. A year later, we repeated the same sort of webinar, and I found that the cost had gone down to about 10% of what it was, what I'd paid a year ago. So everything's getting better, both in terms of usability, quality, power and performance, and also the amount that you're having to pay. Costs keep going down all the time if you were using these commercial implementations. Okay, let's move on a little bit further then. Okay, so a little bit more here in terms of data products, data stories. Again, you can see a wide range of formats. Single store is very much geared around relational technology, but it supports many other formats as well. JSON, for example, I touched upon, and Matt has already mentioned the Apache Iceberg, for example. That is a very popular format today. There's other technologies that we can integrate with. Okay, so Spark, and Kafka, for example, great for streaming, or great if you were working with sort of mlib, for example, you want to do some machine learning. We have this concept of pipelines. We can ingest data at scale into our environment as well. Very, very useful. And this is a nice kind of summary in terms of the capabilities. So the product itself is historically, it was row-based, okay? And it was in memory. Go back a few years, and both the product and the company were called MemSQL. And so everything was kept in memory for speed, and it focused around OLTP. Subsequently, a few years back, added support for analytics, columnar support. Okay, so you can do these kind of aggregate functions, sum, min, max, average, count, the kind of things that you might want to do across large quantities of data. And then in this case, we need to be able to store that on disk. I mean, in theory, if you had enough memory, I suppose you could keep everything in memory, but it makes sense to have this, I think, stored on local disk. Vectors, very popular topic today. And lots of vector database vendors out there as well. One important thing to keep in mind is that Single Store has actually had vector support since 2017. It was, I think, originally a financial customer that requested that capability. And so we are not just new to this area. We have something that has been used and deployed in production environments, used in anger, and it has been done so for some years already. Now, we haven't just been sitting on the fact that we can do vectors. Technology has to advance. We've added some additional capabilities. So earlier this year, a dedicated vector type, rather than having to store things as a blob type, for example, ANN indexing, and then lots of other, sort of cool features and capabilities that are in our documentation. So that really improves the development process as well as notebooks as well. This Jupyter-like environment that we've added, very useful from a developer perspective. just a couple of examples here and the types of customers that we have and the sorts of performance improvements that they're seeing. So Uber here, for example. Okay. This is for real-time insights, massive concurrency for marketing and analytics. Okay. Tier 1 wealth management. I think we're not allowed to name them. So that's 10 milliseconds average response time. And then we've got other things here like Comcast, for example, 300K events per second. Smart meters, that's one of these kind of IoT type applications. Again, top energy company. I think, again, we're not allowed to say who they are. And then finally, sort of Akamai, 10 million upserts per second. Okay, so that is, it shows you the range of capabilities. There's some of the different domains and verticals that we work in and some of the customers that we have. And we have lots more customer case studies we can share with you. Okay, just reach out to us and we can do that. And then just sort of finally give you a little bit. So I've mentioned the in-memory, I've mentioned the column store. So it's a kind of a three-tiered sort of architecture. Think of it like this. So you've got an ingest from some kind of data pipeline, goes straight into memory here. As you can see, this is the row store. Very fast access if you want to process immediately, you know, the OLTP type of application. Column store on local disk, okay, this kind of shared nothing architecture. And then finally, cloud object storage for long-term storage, perhaps much more colder data, maybe things that you don't need to access quite so often. And then architecturally, you've got this concept of sort of aggregator nodes, okay? And here below, you can see these leaf nodes, and attached to each of these, you can see sort of there's disk for storage. So this is the, sort of the general approach that's used. And you've got one table type that is managing both the in-memory OLTP and the OLAP, okay? So if you look at the animation a little bit, you can see here, this is kind of, you know, going across in this direction, sort of horizontally. You can think of the column store sort of vertically. And if you look at the animation there, you'll see that it's a kind of a combination of the two there. So a single universal storage, as we call it, okay, a single table type that can handle both of these types of processing requirements. Just to sum up then, some of the key capabilities, universal storage, which we just mentioned. Okay, very fast. You saw that from the examples of the case studies that I mentioned briefly there. We have this concept of pipelines, okay, for fast ingestion, very, very useful. Again, at scale, in parallel, you can read in vast quantities of data. There is this separation of storage and compute, okay? So that is something that I think you can see in the data warehousing space. I think Snowflake originally used this capability. Single Store can do this as well now. So you have a choice there, okay? We are both MySQL and MongoDB wire compatible. Okay, so Single Store Kai is the MongoDB API that we support. Multi-model, I've mentioned a couple of those already. So JSON support, for example, but also time series, geospatial, which we've again covered in previous webinars, as opposed to multimodal, which is something that is used today in the context of LLMs. And whilst a lot of examples we have seen in the recent past have focused very much on text, things like PDF documents, for example, increasingly, I think people are interested in, well, you know, how about videos or images? And then how about things like audio as well, being able to store all of these and have some kind of association. So think of something like, you know, a phrase, the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. So that is a sentence. Imagine if you have that as audio as well, you know, something that I've spoken, it's been captured in an audio file. And then think of, let's say, a picture of a fox jumping over a dog. All of these three things represent, you know, at its base level, the same kind of piece of information, if you like. And we wanted the ability to be able to store and manage all of these types of information, hence the multimodal kind of aspect to that. Well, Single Store can do that as well, okay? All you need is just the appropriate encoder to be able to convert that data into a suitable format to store, and Single Store will happily store that. Runs anywhere, okay? So we run on the 3 big cloud providers. There's a Docker container available as well within the portal itself. And let me just show you that very, very briefly, okay, before we sort of wrap up. So in the portal itself, on the left-hand side, okay, let me just try and highlight that for you, right on the extreme left-hand side there. Okay, it's got my organization. And obviously, I won't click on this. You'll forgive me for not doing that, but you can see this thing here says self-managed licenses. Okay, so in there you can get a free license to install a 4-node version anywhere you want. Okay, that is the full product, and it's not limited in any capacity. So you can install it on-prem, in the cloud, wherever you want, and you don't pay us any money for that privilege. Compatibility. So we've talked about some of the support. So ANSI SQL, MySQL, MariaDB ecosystem. So if you are coming from that world, very easy to be able to move across to single store very, very quickly. Okay, so let's just move that. Jupyter Notebooks, I've touched on that already. Okay, just to give you an example here, something that I've been just working on within the last day or two is this thing called Pico GPT, which is, I think, from this gentleman, Jay Modi. So 60 lines of code to build your own, GPT, if you like. And it does work, actually. I mean, I'm going to embellish this and work on this. Possibly we can get a webinar out of it, and we'll be able to discuss that in the future. All right, there we go. Just to summarize then. So single store can do vectors, semantic search, okay? There's full text search engine built in as well from Lucene, okay? That's improving as well. Pipelines for fast ingest, ETL on the fly. You can run it on-prem, in the cloud. Hybrid models, that's kind of an interesting one. So you can have part of your single store environment running locally within your environment and part of it running in the cloud. That's a kind of an interesting combination, and single store supports that capability as well. It can handle transactions and analytical data, and then all of these different types of models, SQL, JSON, geospatial, time series. You can do some level of graph as well with recursive CTEs. And I think Matt mentioned this, we've got something coming up, RAG using graph, and that will give you a little bit more sort of an angle and how to implement that using single store in the very near future. Notebooks I've mentioned, Python and SQL are supported, and you can actually run other technologies as well. So I've shown how to run Spark as well within our environment. And the last slide here before I hand over to Ayush. So this is really one of the benefits that you get in terms of performance, the filtering, the information. You need to be able to get to the core of what you're looking for, okay? With the vast quantities of information that we need to search, having this semantic search gives you a great sort of foothold in that space. The full text search will help you as well. You can combine these in terms of a hybrid search. SQL is very, very powerful as well. You can use that again for certain operations as well. Out of the box, if you're wondering, we support dot product and Euclidean distance. You can code up cosine similarity very, very easily. And if there's any other type of distance measure that you're looking for, and you can implement it using Code Engine within the product. So this will allow you to essentially write the code yourself for that particular metric that you want, package that up into a WebAssembly module, load it up into the database system, and the engine will treat that as a UDF. And you can now run that happily on all the data that you have within your database system. And that runs in a totally separate space. So if there's a bug in your code, fortunately, it won't bring everything crashing down. It will just fail itself. It won't affect the engine in any way. So the ability to enrich the results for better accuracy, insights, joins and aggregates, additional filtering, and then finally, this communicating to an LLM, okay? Send the right context to the LLM. Okay, and with that, thank you very much for the opportunity to just to say a little bit about single store there. And so I'll hand over to Ayush now, who will walk you through the demo, and he'll show you how easy this really is. Okay, there we go. So Ayush, I'll stop sharing now, and it's over to you, sir.
Awesome. Thank you, Akmal. And yeah, so I wanted to kind of show, Akmal talked a little bit about, Zapier Central and single store, the powers of single store being able to do really fast transactional data, and Zapier Central's ability to do a lot of things with, agents and using all these integrations that Zapier already has built in. So yeah, Zapier has a bunch of integrations built in, and single store is now one of them. So we have this beta integration with Zapier now, and you could use your single store DB tables as an integration to give data directly to the chatbot, and you can do a lot of things with that. So with that being said, let's get into the demo. So let me pull that up. So yeah, for this demo, I'll be really showing, kind of like a simple use case of, I have this data in my single store DB table, and I want to do some stuff with it. So for example, I'm going to say, give me the data. Before that, actually, I want to show really quickly how you can actually connect single store DB here and all your other integrations. So you have behaviors, you have data sources, and you have instant actions as well. And so, for example, if you're trying to connect single store DB, I can show you an example here. So you can search up single store as one of the integrations. And I have a bunch of different connections here, but you would have to add your own with your single store DB portal. So the way that you do that is you could click connect connection. I'm not sure. Can you guys see this part of my screen? I don't know if I shared my full screen.
I think I can see what you're looking at inside Zapier Central,
Okay.
this browser at least.
There's a pop-up that came up. Let me just share my full
Oh,
screen.
I can't see the pop-up. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. I see it.
Yeah, so there's this basically you need this information here. So there's the host, username and password, and you're able to get your host information directly in your single store DB portal. So you're going to go here, you click connect, and you're going to get this right here. This right here is your host, and you're going to take that, um, go back here, and then you're going to paste this in. And you're also going to want to add the HTTPS. And then you want to put your username for your single store DB, for your SQL, and then the password as well. And you're going to click yes, continue to single store. Nice. Okay, so now we have that connection set up, and you can select which actions we have here. We have these two actions currently, and we're going to be adding a lot more in the near future, but these should be good for this demo today. So let's get started with this kind of demo here, where I'm going to use this table in single store DB, so I can show you which table I have. I have this table called registrants, and basically I have this information called first name, last name, company email, company, and job title. It's an example where, this is registrants for a webinar. For example, this webinar, right? And don't worry, these are all fake names, fake companies, not associated at all. But I'm going to say, give me the data about my current registrants for my upcoming webinar. And we can say from my store database called test and table called registrants. And as you can see, Zapier Central Bot is doing a get table action, and it's going to be getting the data directly from that single store DB table. And let's see what it does. Awesome. So we can see here, it gave the information directly from that table, and you can see what it did here. It saw the instructions. It took these parameters, table name, database, and actually, went through, got this output, and displayed it to us. And I kind of want to also show, just as a quick aside, like another way you can do this. So, for example, I'm going to create a new bot here. So, what I'm going to do is you can also set a behavior. And with this behavior, actually, I'll just go back since the integrations are already there. With this behavior, what you can do is you can actually set up, a custom action, a trigger phase here. And this trigger phase you can say who registered my webinar, and you can give the bot some instructions. And saying using the data on my single store DB table, give it a list of the registrants from a webinar, do data preview, whatever you want here. And you can say like, here's a response format for it as well. And here you can actually specify the actual table name and the database. So you don't actually have to say, this is the data. Like I kind of said, database called test and table called registrants. So you can actually go through and, say the specific one. So then what you can do is you can actually just say, who has registered for a webinar. You can also go here and test the behavior, and it's running a test. And yeah, so that's another way of doing that. Now for this one, you don't actually have to do any type of giving information about your table, stuff like that. It just makes it a lot more seamless. And yeah, so that's gonna work. I think that's good. And then as we continue here, let's see, we can give it, you can do some really cool actions now that we have access to this data, right? So you can give me a breakdown of each job title, what those roles do, and who is in each role.
So Ayush, with that, it's keeping context. So it's basically you've asked it one query and it's returned some data, and then whatever you're asking it, it's just using that as the means to answer the next question. So
Yep.
right.
And you can see how that can be powerful for many different applications. For here, we're just doing it for webinar purposes, but you can do it for analysis on other type of data, financial data, whatever you're trying to use directly here. And you can also do like just a similar query, give me a breakdown of each company, what those companies do, and who is in each company, who registered, and yeah, let's see what its response here. So you can see it's just using the data that I accessed from SingleStore, and it's coming up with these responses that can be really useful as you're trying to understand, like, for example, like who registered from a webinar, right? And then, yeah, no, so now let's take some action, right? So we have these instant actions here. I kind of showed a little bit earlier. These can basically do whatever you want based on the context. So for example, in this example, I'm going to show you, it's going to send an email, but you can also, set a calendar event, and you can connect to all these integrations that Zapier already had for many, many years, over 6,000 integrations, right? So anything that you can think that could be useful, you can have it send a message in Slack, when your Slack channel, stuff like that, based on the data that you're getting from SingleStore or any other data source here. So what we can do is you can say, send an email to the data scientist, for example. And then you can say, thanking them for joining, and ask them, ask them if they have anything specific they want to see in the webinar. And I'm going to say, I want to make these separate individual emails. So make them, individual or separate emails to all recipients. And with that, it's going to use my Gmail integration that I have. So all you have to do is just log into your Gmail with the integration, and it's going to use the data that already has context with from the above in the chat, and it's going to use this action to send an email. And as you can see, there was 2 data scientists in this list right here, Walter and Robert, and it should have sent them both. So we have this one to Walter, and we have this one to Robert. Nice. And yeah, so these 2 were sent, and we can go to my email, and you can see that they're both been sent, and they're going to bounce back because they're fake emails, fake names, but you can see how this can work. And yeah, so I think that kind of really demonstrates this use case with, SingleStore DB. You have that as your data source. You have all these, you have this data here with all these registrants. You can see if it billed over time. Obviously for this example, you don't have that many registrants here, but if you have a bunch more registrants, you can, really get a good summary of who joined. So you can say like how many of them are from Fortune 500 companies, and then break down by role, and then do specific actions based on that. And you can, for example, you can say, add an action here. You want to say Google Calendar. Okay, schedule a meeting with all the product managers. And then they can send a Google Calendar invite to all those product managers and do X, Y, and Z with X role. So that's for this specific use case, but you can see how this can be applicable to any type of use cases with any way you can use data to leverage with all these actions and integrations that Zapier already has built in. And yeah, so I think that's it for this demo. If anyone wants to see anything else or has any questions, we can take that.
This is awesome, really cool. And I would remind everyone, Q&A is open. Just click that button at the bottom of your screen if you want to participate. I know we've gotten a couple questions already. I know I've got some questions myself. This is so cool. One, and this, I don't know if this is a question for Ayush or Akmal or both. But my question is like, I know Single Store is really big on real-time streaming data and like real-time AI. And so I'm assuming that theoretically you could trigger Zapier Central off of anything that goes into Single Store. If it's streaming data from stocks, you could trigger off that. If it's streaming from Twitter, you could trigger off that. So this could be really live if you wanted to. Am I interpreting that correct?
Yeah, I think you're interpreting that correctly. I think it's just however you set up the behaviors based on, you can set up a behavior, for example, that's triggered based on, there's a bunch of different triggers, right? This trigger that I had currently was just triggered based on when I messaged the bot. But for example, you can set up a trigger that um, does something when there's a new row added to single store, a new single store table. And so the triggers is really what allows you to, set up when the action takes place, and then you can have these instructions that follow based on that.
Have you played with data sources at all?
Yeah, so data sources is a really cool tool as well. So data sources, they can really, for example, there's only 6 data sources right now, but these can be also used. And I think Andrew, if you want to elaborate on like how these can really be powerful.
So for anyone who's not aware, what data sources are we allow live dynamic integrations into these 6 applications, and we're adding more every 1 to 2 weeks. What this allows you to do is basically build a dynamic RAG-based integration into these applications. So imagine you want to know when a record in HubSpot is updated, or what is going on in an Airtable. You can power your agent with instructions that actually live off your Airtable or your Notion. And this is updated in near real time. And I believe we're one of the few people that have something like this on the market today.
This is really cool. I know the questions are definitely popping in now. But Andy, I have a question for you that I've wondered as I've played with this myself, had a lot of fun with it. And it's kind of I have historically thought of Zapier as kind of B2B or B2C use cases for the most part. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's kind of how I thought about it. And I wonder, is there any sort of movement afoot to be more enterprise or B2B use cases? Can you think about any like common developer use cases? Or I guess just tell me about like the future and the positioning of the product.
Zapier is focused on making automation work for anyone. And our mission with Central is to really expand what you can do with AI, with automation through AI. The goal for us is to really power the growth over the next 10 years with a product like this. Right now, Central is an experimental workspace. We're adding a lot of new features and functionality on almost a daily basis. And then you asked the question about enterprise. Well, at the beginning of April, Zapier launched an enterprise plan. And that is very much focused on some of our other products, but we are definitely making moves into enterprise, and we are definitely a B2B tool.
Very cool. I see a question from Pablo. And some of this might be for you, Andy, some of it might be for Akmal, but the question is, in a basic sense, is this a customized chat agent? Is Single Store being used like an API and maintaining the data to achieve the objective? So I wonder if you could clarify things. And again, Andy, I'll give you the first pass at it, but Akmal might want to talk a little bit about Single Store overall, like what is Single Store?
I think you all should take this one, given it's very Single Store specific.
Sure. Akmal, you want to take a pass at it?
Yes. So single store is great for storing state and long-term memory. Things that you want to remember. That's what it's good for, and sharing amongst multiple users. So I think Ayush is using it for storing the data. You saw the email addresses and the names of the people. There we go. He's showing it right now. So this is kind of permanent in the sense that it's going to remain long after the process or the program that created it terminates, right? So this is for querying again in the future. So that's what a database system will be very good for, and single store in particular. However, I mean, you could, in theory, if you're processing, say, real-time data, maybe you don't need any particular storage. So you could use the in-memory capability of single store, process the data, and then pass it on. It may not necessarily need to stick around. Okay, you may not need to save that state for the future. But I'm guessing, Ayush, you're accessing obviously the Zapier APIs, that you're accessing the tooling there to be able to get the data out of single store, and then it's performing these queries on the back end, if you like, and using the environment to be able to complete its sort of query process and return you the results. I did have to think a little bit the first time you ran it, but I think it's got a little bit better after that. So yeah, Andy, maybe you want to say something about that as well. So
I think you covered it pretty well. You're using Store as a trigger, I think, in this specific workflow. And so the product itself has access to 7,000 plus integrations. It has access to 6 custom live dynamic data sources and so much more. There's also a Zapier Central Chrome extension that's with instant actions for all the synchronous workflows. So imagine when you're browsing the internet and you wanted to send a cold email to somebody off of LinkedIn. Well, you could just quickly prompt it to write the cold email and create the draft in your Gmail, and Zapier Central will do that too. So the product itself is very full-featured and focused on a lot of different horizontal use cases.
It's really cool. I know as I watch a demo like this, I'm thinking like the marketer sort of mindset in terms of, I have to generate reports every week, and I'm thinking of how this could see the new data that's coming in and generate reports for me, and even send out those reports to me or my team if it's got access to my Gmail or access to my Slack. And obviously there's things that it could do to, if somebody, signs up for the product, we could send out customized emails, personalized emails just automatically. So it really feels like a very versatile and flexible product, which is cool.
I think it's going to be a real time saver, Matt.
Totally.
Saver. Yeah. Because it's what I think Ayush showed, the ability to automate what could normally be considered mundane tasks. Let the software and the technology handle these things, free up us as individuals to be able to do the kind of more productive things that we might want to do. And so that, I think, is going to be a big time saver. So, and I think we need to update our slides. So, Andy, you mentioned 7,000. Now I think we had 6,000 plus. So we've got to go back and update our slides. So thank you for that.
I just saw that number internally now.
Okay.
Good stuff. Andy, another question for you. There's a question here from Brandon. It's talking about what about HubSpot? Can we integrate with HubSpot for like sales outreach or alerts? And I'm pretty sure. Yeah, go ahead. I saw that in the data source options. You want to talk through these data sources?
Yeah. So we have HubSpot today. We have Airtable. We have Sheets, Google Doc, Notion, and Zapier tables. I would think of these as almost like memory or databases. And could you do a sales outreach alert use case? Totally. You would prompt it to use these data sources. These can be these can work in synchronous. So chat with your data style use cases, or asynchronous. So creating bots or assistants that work on their own and triggering you and triggering a different type of alerting. You'll also, I think you can expect to see from us these type of workflows to appear in other platforms in the near future.
Good stuff. Are you allowed to talk at all about what's on your roadmap? I'm sure folks are curious about that, but I totally understand if you need to keep that secret or confidential.
No comment, Matt.
Okay, good stuff. Akmal and Ayush, I know you guys have maybe been scanning through the questions here, and maybe even saw some that we answered during the presentation that you think were interesting for the audience. Anything you want to call out or answer live that you see here?
Okay, so I see a question there from Masood. He was, I think I answered something about how to get some of the ETL tools that you might want to use with a vector database. So his question was specifically, can you work with things like ChromaDB, Quadrant, etc. And to be fair, I mean, this is Ayush and Andy don't work for SingleStore. They are co-presenters, so they're very welcome to comment on that. All I would say is that I think it's great to see this kind of integration. I'm sure more database systems will appear as part of the list as well. And that just, opens up the field. So at the end of the day, it's a question of choosing the right technology for the problem that we have. SingleStore is awesome for a wide range of problems. And you can use it as a vector-only database, although I think you're really not using it to its full strength if you just do that. It really comes into its own when you use all of those capabilities that we discussed earlier, which you typically want to do in an enterprise environment. Okay, so it's not just about vectors, it's full text search, it's JSON data, for example. Maybe you've got MongoDB apps that you want to integrate, or there's a whole range of MySQL data that you want to work with. So that's really where its strength lies. But again, I'll leave it to Andy and Ayush to comment on other vector database support.
Yeah, I see another question here from Richard. I think he's asking, so he's a teacher, would like to educate students on how to do analyze public companies for M&A analysis. So he wants an example on how you might do this. So for example, you'd use a data source or some sort of thing where you have a database of all this information, like SingleStore for, if you want to, for example, have all this information about public companies and their, stock prices and stuff like that. Whatever data that you want to use, you need some sort of data source there. And then you would directly connect it as an integration to Zapier Central. And I'm sure Zapier with its tons of integrations probably has like some sort of financial history type of stock analysis integrations that you could use as well. And you could use that directly for your students to like kind of chat with the bot and understand whatever type of analysis you're doing in that situation.
And of course, there's always the option you can write your own integration, which you've done for us, Ayush. So it can't be that hard. So,
Furthermore, one other thing we haven't demoed is Zapier Central can actually go to a website. So Ayush, do you want to just show them a query where you say, go to Google and grab the top 5 AI, go to Google and grab the top 5 AI news articles today? So it has browsing capability built in.
So cool.
That's really cool.
I have sort of a follow-up question on that teacher's question, and I'll pose it to you, Ayush, because I've seen some of the demos that you've done. And so like this demo that you showed, it's very intuitive to me. It's straightforward. Like it's sort of like structured, tabular data. I can understand that. But I know SingleStore also can do JSON and multimodal, like all different, formats and file types. Do you think, like theoretically, if that type of data, all of those different formats are inside SingleStore, could you still use that data to trigger off of something to use that in Zapier Central? I'm trying to think through that at all. Have you thought about that possibility?
Yeah, I've thought about the possibility if you have like vector types in there as well. So that really comes down to the RAG capabilities of the Zapier Central bot. I know with the data sources, it definitely can do something like that. But I'm not sure with the direct integrations. I think Andrew can talk a little bit more about that.
That's where data sources come into play. So that's the RAG integration piece. So you would need single store to be a data source, which it is not today.
Got it.
We do not have any databases per se that are data sources yet.
Got it. Very cool. Well, I can only imagine the future possibilities as that builds out. I think we have time for, I don't know, 1, 2 more questions. We need to announce that AirPods or Ray-Bans winner, and we have some wrap up announcements. But I wonder if there's still a fair amount of open questions. Anything you all see in the thread that you want to answer publicly for the audience? Any good questions you want to talk through?
Yeah, Matt, I've seen there's a question there from Daniel. He's asking, will it store any data when processing, as it probably will be a concern to handle private stroke proprietary data? Well, I can only comment on the single store side. I mean, single store has got RBAC, role-based access control, and you can set privileges in terms of what data you can see and who can perform sort of operations on that. So from the database side, I mean, essentially you can create things like views as well, which will just expose what you want people to see. So that's definitely possible. But from the Zapier side, maybe Ayush might be best placed to answer, what if there is some ability to sort of interrogate the database purely from, say, views, or is it actual tables, physical tables that we would need to do?
So can you clarify that question? So
yeah, so I think that he's asking the question, is a little bit of concern there about private proprietary data. The fact that you may be asking questions of the database system, for example, and it's obviously running queries on top of that data. I think that if I get the gist of it, just looking for some control over what might be accessed and when.
Okay, I see. Yeah, so with single store, you can access like different types of data. So in this situation, it's doing a get table action. So if there's some type of data that you don't want in that table to be accessed by Zapier or any chatbot, then you would probably want to use a different table that doesn't have that. If you have like secure data and you don't want it to be accessed, that's mainly for data that can be simply used or without any security concerns. And yeah, I think. You can also, with single store, there's ways you can do different SQL queries to basically get different types of data based on what you want. And yeah, I think hopefully that answers the question.
So Ayush, so in the integration that you've developed, is it sort of purely tables that are being accessed at the moment? I mean,
yeah. At the moment,
could we extend that to like views, for example, at some point?
Yeah, currently it's just tables with integration, but that's
Okay.
something that's easily accessible or easily built that we can be built
Gotcha.
with our integration. Currently, they have these two actions with get, or I think it's add row and get table.
Right.
But you can easily build out these. I can easily build out these integrations by adding the SQL queries directly to the integration. It just needs to be take a couple days to get approved by Zapier, and then yeah, it's really just about making these actions accessible, and that's really easily doable with the developer API.
Gotcha. Great.
Cool. I've got a question for Andy, and I'm going to try to summarize like multiple at once because I've seen a fair amount of questions come through about like, I'm new to Zapier. I'm trying to position this, like what category it is. Some people saying like, what's the difference between Zapier and OpenAI or Claude? And I've tried to like kind of describe this myself to some friends who have been asking me questions when I show them this stuff. But I'm curious, Andy, if you have a succinct or pithy answer to trying to help position this product for people who are seeing this for the first time.
Zapier Central is an experimental AI workplace that's focused on really automating work using AI. OpenAI does not do that. Claude does not do that. No one else on the internet that I am aware of has a general purpose product out there that does that. We use foundational models under the hood. And when you pay for Zapier Central, you are paying for the AI plus our integration platform. And we use a combination of different AI models from vendors like OpenAI to power this product.
Makes total sense. And I assume this question, at least from my friends who asked it, just comes from like the familiarity with a chatbot interface, thinking like, oh, that kind of reminds me of ChatGPT. But ChatGPT doesn't have, you know, all of these connections that can take action in all of these different areas. So that's kind of helped me think through it. And but to your point, these are not, it's not a competitor, right? These are, OpenAI is one of many integrations that can be used, but it's not, you know, you're not in the same space really, right?
We are not in the same space. So OpenAI does not today have integrations in ChatGPT with with software vendors, etc. They've we're really focused at Zapier on AI automation. That is what we do. We've been around 16 years. We've been focused on automation since then. And millions of people every month use Zapier, whether it's in historic automation or using some of our new AI products.
Cool.
Andrew, good question for you. Was there a free tier? Matt, was it you that mentioned there's a free tier?
There is a free tier. So if you go to zapier.com/central, you'll see a link to the pricing page. There is a free tier for the product, so you can get on board and try using it. We also have paid tiers for the product and then enterprise plans available for people to ask for quotes on. And so on the free plan, which we're on right now, and what we've been demoing right now, we give you 400 behaviors a month that you can run.
Right.
Awesome. I just pasted that link into the chat. I know I've had a blast playing with it for free for weeks and weeks and weeks, but it's good to see the other options for more advanced users. So I just pasted that in. Thank you for that info. I know we're right at time, so I better do the wrap up announcements and everything. But keep the questions coming in. We'll try to follow up with folks via email if we don't get to you today. So once again, if these topics have been interesting to you today, we've got more webinars that are coming up. I posted those into the chat, upcoming stuff on RAG agents, knowledge graph RAG, and unfreezing your iceberg data. Would love to see you at those events. So check out those links in the chat, and I hope to see you there. The announcement you've been waiting for, today's raffle winner goes to Donald Kramer, a principal product manager at Hitachi. Congrats, Donald. Thank you for joining us. If that's not you, don't give up. We're actually going to give out one more AirPods or Ray-Ban LLM glasses to somebody who has signed up and tried this out. So give it a shot. We're going to send out an email later today with the full video recording, also the link to try it out. And we'll announce one more winner before the end of the day. So thank you to our presenters. Ayush, awesome demo. Akmal, love the presentation. Andy, we're so glad you joined us. Awesome questions. And thank you for creating this incredible product that's changing the world, I think. So thank you to all of our presenters, and thanks to our audience for joining us. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Bye-bye.